right, let's hear what Coach Rocky Long thought about last night's national championship game. Sure, he was sitting there watching every play. Bet you he thought the same thing. Now, come on, freshman quarterbacks, really? Here's the head coach of the San Diego State Aztec football team, Coach Rocky Long. Hi, Coach.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Coach, you heard the setup. Were you surprised that these two kids, I'm sure you knew who they were because they were the top recruited guys last year, but these two guys show up on the same stage the same night, national championship game, two true freshmen, really?
When you hear the story, I'm very surprised. Now, I'd seen the semifinal games too, and saw how good the quarterback from Georgia was in the semifinal game against Oklahoma. So I already knew his story, and that's quite the story. And he had a great year since he had to take over for their guy that was coming back. But I knew the name of the backup quarterback at Alabama, but I didn't know that he was going to play, and I don't think anybody expected him to play.
Could you actually pronounce his name, Coach?
No, I cannot. So I won't try because I'd hate to ruin it. But
would you ever do that? When you have a guy who's 25-2 as a starter, who's trying to redeem the team from their loss a year ago in the national title game, who struggles in the first half, are you really going to bench this guy in favor of a true freshman quarterback?
If you listen closely to Coach Saban after the game, or no, I think it was the quarterback after the game that said, "Well, they told me I was going to start the second half, and we were going to rotate quarterbacks."
Mm-hmm.
So the plan was to put him in there and see if that changed anything because they were really bad on offense in the first half, and that I don't think it was a planned deal. I think let's throw him in there and see if that changes, gives us a better luck. And I think they planned on alternating him depending on the situation. But then he went in there and played so good, there was no reason to put the other guy back in.
Yeah, but, Coach, even early, though, he took a sack, he threw an interception. I was thinking to myself the whole time, is he going to now take the kid out? He gave him a couple plays, kid throws an interception, they bring the other guy back in. They really committed to this kid, and he rewarded them.
I think they committed to him, so when he went in there, there was more energy on their offense. I don't know if you could see that or I felt that, but it seemed to me like there was a lot more energy with their offense when he was in there. And obviously they thought he could get them to the promised land, which he did. And they were probably a little disappointed on how the other kid played. They thought he would play better early in the game than he did. And they and if you listen to Coach Saban, they put the best thrower of the two in because they were behind. So it turned out right for everybody at Alabama.
Well, except for one guy.
Who's that, the backup quarterback?
The guy who was the starting quarterback.
I think it worked out just fine for him. I thought he handled it with class.
Totally.
I thought he was totally a team guy. I think that's what you expect out of anybody on the team.
But, Coach, let me ask you a question. Seriously, you have this kid, Jalen Hurd, who's only a sophomore, and he's already been to a national title game, and he's 25-2, and he gets benched. The other kid comes in, and in one half of football goes from virtual unknown, although high school All-American and everything else, to instant Alabama legend. Don't you think now that the other kid is like, well, I'll never play again?
I think that it'll be great competition in spring practice, and if he's the backup, he transfers.
Right. I'd like him to transfer to San Diego State. You should start talking to him.
You should get going on
I see where you're going with it now.
Right. You should start talking to that kid immediately. You know what he could do? He could redshirt next year. He'll be ready for the final 2 years, and he'll play for you.
I like that idea too. Let's see if he wants to transfer first because you never know. He might still be the starting quarterback after spring practice.
Yeah, but how do you not play this kid Tua after what he just did? He just delivered a national championship. They pulled him off the bench cold, and he delivered walk-off style.
Well, I've seen coaches do a great job of alternating quarterbacks, having two good quarterbacks and using them both depending on what the situation was in the game. And if anybody can pull that off, it's Nick Saban in Alabama.
But I got to say, I was feeling this kid's pain watching on television, and I was so impressed with the way he was handling himself. He didn't sulk. He didn't pout. He didn't hide under his helmet. He didn't hide in the locker room. He didn't take off his pads. The kid was as professional as could be expected. And by the way, Coach, I don't know if you noticed this on television, but I thought I did. The quarterback, the backup, the kid, freshman from Hawaii, could you see it in his eyes how truly calm he was? He seemed like he was in total control of the situation. What'd you say?
I thought that's what he showed too. It didn't look like anything bothered him, and I'm with you on the other kid. I think that's great upbringing. I think his parents raised him the right way, that taught him that team was first and he was second, and maybe there's a whole bunch of guys like that on Alabama's team, and that's part of the reason. I mean, they're good, but that's maybe part of the reason they can win a national championship.
And speaking of being raised the right way, Coach, what are your thoughts on the kid that went after the coach on the sideline?
I think that that happens on sidelines all the time. I think kids are immature. They lose control emotionally. And
so what do you do?
Well, I thought they handled it pretty good.
They put him back in the game and said, stop trying to beat up the coaches. Go try and beat up the Georgia guys.
Well, I think they handled it pretty good.
Well, he did try to beat up the Georgia guys.
Grabbed a hold of him and sat him on the bench, and they talked to him and settled him back down and gave him another chance. I didn't see anything wrong with that.
All right, we're talking to Rocky Long, the head football coach at San Diego State, about last night's national championship game won by Alabama walk-off style in overtime over Georgia. Coach, do you sit there and watch a game like that and think to yourself, how would my team compete against those teams?
I do.
And
then I try to compare our talent level at different spots to the talent level they're playing at. I thought there was a couple really good running backs out there. I don't think they were any better than Rashad Penny. I think he would fit right in there. The biggest difference I saw of our team and their team is the size and athletic ability of their defensive linemen. What Alabama and Georgia are playing with are NFL guys. And we don't have many NFL guys on our team, that especially in the defensive line. Now, I thought what they were playing with on the offensive line is very similar to our guys, very similar, size-wise, athletic ability-wise, all those sort of things. And then if you were able to watch the film, which I wasn't, you could tell if the receivers were comparable or not. But what you notice the most is the size and athletic ability of the defensive linemen at that level.
All right, so let me ask you this. If Auburn beat Alabama and Auburn beat Georgia, but Central Florida beat Auburn in a bowl game, would you give Central Florida a chance against either Alabama or Georgia last night?
Well, we've been talking forever, and I'm for that. Yeah, I mean, let's have a real tournament.
No, I'm asking you. Do you think? Serious question here. If Central Florida at 12-0 goes into last night to play Georgia or Alabama, you think UCF could beat either of those teams, knowing what you know now?
On the right night, yes.
Okay, interesting. UCF finished sixth. They were 13-0. They finished behind Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Clemson, and Ohio State. You think Central Florida deserves to be sixth, or do you think Central Florida deserves to be second or third?
No, I think six is right on, because you haven't actually seen them against all those teams, or they haven't played the same. Their conference isn't as strong and all that. But I think there has to be a way, when you have a Central Florida out there that ends the season undefeated, there has to be a way to get them in the playoffs. Now, once in every 20 years, you're going to have somebody good enough to win it. The other 19 out of the 20 years, they're not going to be good enough to win it. But it ought to be like NCAA basketball. Everybody should have an honest chance to win the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
Were you turned off last night by the fact that these were two SEC schools?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, they earned their way in there, other than UCF should have been in the tournament.
All right, Rocky Long. Wouldn't you love to go play a UCF or a USF? Go play that I'm going to call it secondary school. It's not Florida or Florida State or Miami, although Central Florida is obviously a better football team right now than any of those. But why not go play those guys at some point? Go play a South Florida, a Central Florida, a Miami. Go play some East Coast schools.
Well, we have done that, not this year, but we did that the 2 years before that in bowl games and beat both AAC teams.
Cincinnati, I'm trying to remember, and Houston, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, people can want to forget that now since we ended the season poorly.
Well, right. I mean, so you've probably gone back and watched this Army game a bunch. I mean, total domination by their offense in terms of time of possession. What is? We haven't spoken since then. What have you been? You've been reviewing the film. What do you think about what happened?
I think that we didn't play very well up front on defense, and obviously we didn't prepare our players well enough, especially how fast they ran, the kind of offense they ran. And we've never been in that situation before where we played 93 plays on defense. That's about 30 more plays than we normally play on defense, because our offense usually controls the ball, and 91 of them were running plays. Now, if you look at the average per run, we didn't play too bad. If you look at the total number of yards, anytime someone gains 400 yards rushing, everybody thinks it's total domination. But if they throw for 400 yards, they don't think that. It's exactly the same. And if we don't throw an interception late in the game, we're going to go ahead by 2 touchdowns and we win the game. But if and zans don't count, and there are no excuses for losing. So they outplayed us, so they deserve to win.
All right. Well, as that happened, and again, it's kind of ancient history at this point. It wasn't any big deal. I mean, it was a bowl game. It was nice. I'm sure you guys have a good time. Team have fun.
Oh, well, all except game day, we had fun.
Right.
Yeah.
And you guys got some extra practices in. I mean, there's benefit to having played, and unfortunately, the game was lost. But I don't know how much you can talk about this. But that early signing period that we had talked about, you guys seem to have really cleaned up. And the kids that you expected to sign locally, it seemed anyway you did. Things seem to be going pretty well right now, right?
Yeah, I think that worked better than we anticipated, and I think it helps us non-Power 5 guys a lot more than it helps the Power 5 guys, because the guys we signed, there's got to be 5 or 6 of those guys that they would be trying to poach in late January, which they don't get a chance to now. So our ability to maybe match their athletic ability on the field gets better and better with that.
You got a bunch of other guys you're still trying to sign?
Well, we only got room for about 5, so obviously we're going to be a little picky, but we got 3 weeks to get those guys signed in February.
You got all these kids that recently signed going to work and playing recruiters for you? I mean, you got a lot of talent here in San Diego that is still yet unsigned, and you got a lot of these kids that were the big stars of San Diego high school football that all did sign with San Diego State already. Those guys should be out there doing the recruiting.
Yeah, we can't direct them, but they are doing it. With the social media the way it is now, we have a couple of those guys that signed with us early that are working on those guys that haven't decided yet.
All right, that sounds cool. Well, Coach, it was a great game last night. It was incredible, and
it was,
and it was a terrific ending to the college football season. Coach, did you like the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar?
Well, I think I was doing something else during the halftime show.
Would you prefer, Coach, college marching bands, or a really contemporary, cool, young superstar?
Oh, my God.
Well, I don't get involved in judging those things because I have my own problems. But I'll tell you, did you flip over and listen to the coaches on the round table talk? Did you enjoy that?
A little bit. I kind of went to the next channel up and I watched. They had like 4 guys standing on the field doing the broadcast, which I really liked. And then I did flip up a little bit to see the coaches talking about it. I kind of was just really more into the traditional broadcast.
Oh, I was too. Those guys bored me.
The coaches?
Yeah.
Who was it?
Well, I think Duke coach was there. I'm trying to remember. There was 4 or 5 coaches there. Coach Bobo from Colorado State was on there, probably because he played at Georgia and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They did it in the semifinal game too. I watched it in the semifinal game and got a little bored with it, because coaches talk coach talk, and that's not exciting.
No, it's boring. Why don't you do that? Why don't you offer your services to ESPN next year and do that?
Hey, he's focusing on it.
No, seriously, it would help. I mean, a lot of people probably saw that, and it'd be good for kids to see you on there.
Yeah, I think it helps recruiting. If they ask me, I'd do it.
Well, why don't we ask
Scott, hook that up then if he wants to do it.
I'll look into it.
I listened to you last week from the sidelines in the pro games too. You did a good job.
He does a good job on the sideline, don't you think?
I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
I just make stuff up.
No, you don't.
No.
I'm
on this show you do.
Bad now.
On this show you do, but not on the sideline. Yeah.
Coach, I know you'll tell me if I do bad. I know you will. Coach, it is great to talk to you. Thanks for some feedback on last night's national championship game. Great talking to you.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you soon. Coach Rocky Long.